There was a photograph. It sat on the desk in a private secretary's office for 11 days. No one knew why it was there. Until now. The photograph showed two women at the same event, standing 6 feet apart, looking in opposite directions. That detail, 6 feet, opposite directions, was not accidental. In royal circles, nothing is accidental. Every angle of every body tells a story that the words around it are carefully designed to contradict. This is what happens when the cameras stop rolling. To understand the photograph, you have to go back further. Not years, months. There had been a meeting, private, as these things always are. The kind of meeting that doesn't appear in any official calendar and is attended by people who will later, if asked, describe it as a routine conversation. The kind of routine conversation that lasts 2.5 hours and ends with at least one person leaving before the tea has been cleared. Camilla left first. The woman who remained, a senior member of staff who had served the household for over a decade, sat for a moment with her hands folded on the table. Then she picked up her notepad. Then she set it down. Then she left too. What was discussed in that meeting has been described differently by different people. That is the nature of these things. The version that reached the outside, through the careful, deniable channels that these things always travel, was this. Camilla had raised concerns about Catherine, about her presence, about the specific kind of attention that presence was generating. Not concerns about Catherine's health, not about her recovery, which had been, by any observable measure, remarkable, but about the narrative that had formed around that recovery. The way the public had responded, the way the press had responded, the way the numbers had responded. People noticed. Of course they did. Approval ratings in the monarchy are a strange, somewhat brutal instrument. They measure something real, public sentiment, public trust, but they measure it in ways that the palace treats officially as irrelevant and privately as urgent. Nobody admits to watching the numbers. Everyone watches the numbers. And the numbers, in the months after Catherine's return to public life, had moved in a direction that made certain rooms in certain palaces very quiet. Her first public appearance after her illness had drawn the kind of coverage that no communications team can manufacture. The images, careful, understated, a woman who had been through something and was standing up anyway, had landed differently than the palace had anticipated. Not as a royal event, as something human. The public responded to human things. They always do. They'd had years of practice. Camilla had been watching the numbers too. She saw what everyone saw. And for the first time in years, she felt something she couldn't name. Not jealousy. That word is too simple, too clean. Not fear. She had outlasted too much to be afraid. Something older. Something she didn't want to examine too closely. Something that sat in her chest during long evenings and made her quieter than usual. Her husband noticed. He always noticed. He said nothing. But what happened next, no one expected. The comments attributed to Camilla, and that word attributed is doing a great deal of work here, were not made in a press release. They were not made in an interview. They were made, allegedly, in a private context to a small number of people, in a tone that those who relayed them described as pointed. The specific content has been reported variously. Different outlets, different details, different degrees of specificity. What they share, the common thread across the versions that have emerged, is this. Camilla questioned whether the attention surrounding Catherine was proportionate, whether the framing of her as a figure of quiet resilience was, in some sense, a construction. She's well managed. One version has her saying, 2 words, the kind of sentence that contains a world. It got out. How it got out matters more than most people have considered. The person who leaked it has never been identified, but those who know the household say it wasn't an accident. Someone wanted this particular conversation to travel. Someone made a calculation about timing, about recipients, about what would happen when it landed. Someone understood that 2 words in the right ears at the right moment become a story that can't be recalled. The question, and is a question that several people in several rooms are still sitting with, is whether Camilla knew that, whether the leak was always the point. That's where things took a turn. Catherine was told, not immediately, These things take time to move through the household in ways that don't create further damage, but she was told. Those who were present when she received the information describe a woman who did not react in the way that might be expected. There was no visible distress. There was no reaching for a phone. She read what she was shown, set the paper down, and asked one question. Does William know? She was told that he did. She nodded once, slowly, like someone filing something in a place where it would be easy to find later. Good, she said, and that was all. William's response was different. William has his father's capacity for patience and his mother's capacity for feeling things at a cellular level. And those two things in him exist in permanent, exhausting tension. He can hold something calmly on the outside for a very long time. But calm on the outside does not mean calm inside. He had been watching Camilla for years with the complicated vision of someone who has reasons to be grateful and reasons to be something else entirely. He had, publicly, made the right gestures, stood beside her, spoken well of her where speaking was required, done what the institution asked. But there's a line. The line, for William, is Catherine. Not because he is sentimental about it, though he may be, but because Catherine is the one part of his life that he has decided belongs to him and not to the institution. She is not a royal asset. She is not a communication strategy. She is the person he chose, and the distinction matters to him more than almost anything else. When it reached him that Camilla had spoken about Catherine in those terms, in any terms, his response was not loud. He picked up his phone. He made one call. He set the phone down and stood at the window for a while. She's well managed, he said to the person beside him, repeating the phrase flatly. That's what was said. The person beside him said nothing. Right, William said, and he moved on, but his hands were still. It should have ended there, but it didn't. Here is the twist, the detail that changes the shape of everything before it. Camilla had not initiated the conversation where those words were spoken. She had been asked, directly, by someone whose role involves, among other things, shaping the internal narratives of a household. Someone who had come to her with a question, not an aggressive one, a conversational one, about how she felt the family's public dynamics were settling. It was a test of what exactly is not entirely clear, but the framing of the question, the specific wording, the person who asked it, the room they chose for the asking, was not neutral. And Camilla, who has navigated hostile rooms for longer than most people have been paying attention, should perhaps have recognized the architecture of the thing. She didn't, or she did, and answered anyway. The two options are equally interesting, because if she didn't see it coming, it suggests that something has shifted in her judgment, that the confidence that she has built over years has curdled, slightly, into something less careful. And if she did see it and spoke anyway, it suggests that she made a calculation, that she believed those words would stay where she put them. She was wrong about that, and that's when everything changed. Charles was informed. How exactly, through which channel, in which room, those details are not available. But the timeline that can be constructed from what is known suggests that he found out within 48 hours of the words leaving the room where they were spoken. His initial response, as described by someone who was nearby, was silence. Not the comfortable silence of a man processing information. The specific, tight silence of a man who has heard something he cannot unknow and is working out, methodically, what to do with it. He did not go to Camilla immediately. He went to his garden. He does this. When something is difficult, he goes to whatever outdoor space is available and moves through it slowly. Not for exercise, just for the movement. People who know him well have learned to read this as a sign that something significant is being decided. He was outside for 40 minutes. When he came back in, he asked to see two people. His private secretary was one. His communications lead was the other. The meeting lasted just under an hour. There was one detail the palace left out. What came out of that meeting was not a confrontation, not in the direct sense. Charles does not do direct confrontations. He never has. His method, when something has to change, is to adjust the structure around it rather than address the thing itself. What changed in the weeks that followed was Camilla'S schedule. Specific engagements were moved. Not all of them. Not dramatically, but the ones that would have placed her in direct public proximity to the narratives being built around Catherine. Those were quietly restructured. A charity event where both women were due to appear was reorganized so that their appearances fell on different days. A joint engagement that had been in planning for months was, without announcement, assigned to Catherine alone. The geometry of the family's public presentation was slowly, deliberately redrawn. Camilla was also quietly removed from two advisory conversations she had previously been included in, about public communications, about the family's messaging strategy. She was thanked for her previous contributions and not re-invited. That was the consequence. Not dramatic, not public, but in a language of institutions where inclusion is power and exclusion is its mirror, it was unmistakable. Camilla noticed. She is not a woman who misses things. She has survived too much to be inattentive. She looked at her revised schedule, understood what it represented, and said nothing in any official capacity. Privately, there was a conversation, described by one source as brief and unpleasant, in which she made clear that she understood what was happening. "I'm being managed," she said. The choice of word was not lost on anyone in the room. "She's well managed." Those two words, turn around and hand it back. Whether it was intentional, whether Camilla had held onto that phrase and deployed it deliberately in that private conversation, is the kind of thing that can never be fully known. The people who were present have their interpretations. They differ. What came next, even those closest to them didn't see coming. Charles did something that no one had predicted. He put them in the same room. Not at a public event. That would come later, but privately. He called a small dinner. The kind of dinner described afterward as informal and family-focused that contains, beneath that description, about 40 years of unresolved complexity. Catherine was there. William was there. Camilla was there. Charles was there. The dinner lasted 2 hours and 20 minutes. What was said across it is not known. These things are never known, not fully. But what was observed by the staff who moved through the room, by whoever cleared the dessert plates, by the person who noted when the group rose to leave, was this: Camilla and Catherine spoke directly to each other twice. Once briefly, at the beginning, about nothing significant, the kind of words that are really just an acknowledgement that both people are present and both are choosing for now to be civil. Once longer, near the end. During that second conversation, neither of them smiled, but neither of them looked away. William watched from across the room. He didn't move closer. He didn't need to. Charles, at the head of the table, ate his dinner with the careful concentration of a man who has decided that presence is the only thing he can offer and is offering it fully. "She's extraordinary, your wife," a guest said to William at one point, about something entirely unrelated, a project Catherine had championed. William looked across the room at her. "She is," he said. He said nothing else. He didn't need to. Here's what most people missed. The photograph on the desk, the one that sat there for 11 days. The two women, 6 feet apart, looking in opposite directions. It had been taken at a public engagement weeks before any of this became the story it became. At the time, the photographer had submitted it as routine. Palace Communications had reviewed it and set aside. "Too cold," the note on the file read. "Wrong message." It ended up on a private secretary's desk because someone had pulled it from the archive when the story broke, trying to locate the moment where the distance had started, trying to find the exact frame where 6 feet became something other than coincidence. But the full, uncropped version of that photograph, the version that never circulated publicly, shows something the cropped image conceals. Catherine and Camilla are not just standing apart. They are both looking at the same thing. A child, off to the left, who had dropped something. They are facing different directions from each other, but they are looking at the same point. Whether that means anything is something each person will have to decide for themselves. The revised schedule remains in place. Some adjustments have become permanent. Others are described by the palace as ongoing reviews of engagement planning, the language institutions use when something is changing, and they would prefer not to say why. Camilla has continued. She always continues. The appearances, the composure, the careful warmth that is both her greatest strength and the thing that keeps the public at arm's length. Catherine has continued too, quietly, steadily, without appearing to be doing very much at all, and somehow being present everywhere that matters. Charles tends his garden. William stands at windows. And somewhere in a filing cabinet, in a private secretary's office, there is still a photograph. Uncropped, full version, 2 women, same point, different angles. It hasn't been filed away. Someone kept it within reach. No one has explained why.